Now, for Bristol Rovers, obviously they're going to want to ensure that they continue to bounce back and make sure that Darrell Clarke has that promotion experience and utilises it again with Bristol Rovers at the club that he had a great sort of tenure in, 10 years or so ago. I mean, in terms of the transfer business, it's a big window. It's a window where they have to make sure they do sort of clear out a few free agents and they get some real clever signings in to ensure that they are right bouncing back up. At the end of the day, they don't want to be anywhere near League Two come 12 months from now. They want to be making sure they're preparing for another League One season, and hopefully it can all go to plan for Darrell Clarke and his side. Now, the transfer window is still ticking on, and the contracts are there and the retain lists are there. For Bristol Rovers, we're going to our correspondent Dan. Dan, what do you think Bristol Rovers need? What can you sort of tell us about where they are in terms of this window, how they're viewing it, how they're going about their business? Is it sort of continuing from previous windows? Have they changed any strategies now that they have been relegated, and then they might need to change a few plans to make sure they go straight back up? Because, Darrell Clarke has come to a side where he could probably punch way above Bristol Rovers' weight, let's be honest. But surely something's enticed them to come back, and there's a bit of a plan and a project to get them back to League One. So, Dan, what are your thoughts ahead of this window and how it's sort of panning out for Bristol Rovers ahead of the new campaign?
Well, Charles, for Bristol Rovers, they've now played their first match of pre-season. They ran out as 2-1 winners away at Chippenham Town. Darrell Clarke was certainly pleased with the attitude that his players have shown, not only in that game but also in pre-season as a whole so far. Of course, him and his two new assistant head coaches in Rhys Carr and John Stead also joining the club, and clearly Clarke has been impressed not only with them and their dedication but also the players too, in terms of gelling everything together ahead of the new League Two season. Obviously, they've also made a host of new signings as well, with the latest of which just arriving very recently in Luke Southwood. So lots to be positive about from a Bristol Rovers perspective. Clearly Clarke has been happy with the way things have got underway in pre-season. I think it was always crucial for the club that they did make a good start to pre-season, because given the fact that he's a new head coach and given the fact that just how poorly things had ended under the previous management regime, of course, with the relegation, things had to get off to a good start, and they had to sort of hit the ground running to make sure that the momentum they had was diverted in the other direction and not a negative momentum. They had to be created to make it positive as well, and turn things around at the club and make sure that they're hitting the ground running ahead of this new season and go into the season full of momentum itself. So certainly they've made a good start, the best start they possibly could have done by winning in a pre-season game. But of course, Darrell Clarke will know this, that the pre-season games aren't necessarily about the result. It's about sort of defining their patterns of play, the way they want to play, their styles of play as well, and making sure that the team is cohesive, it's coherent, that there's good synergy amongst it as well, and they all know exactly how each other want to play. So results, yes, it's nice to get a win, and of course against a team like Chippenham Town, it's not a foregone conclusion that you win, of course, because sometimes, well, it's not. But ultimately, they ran out as 2-1 winners, and ultimately, Darrell Clarke was pleased not only with the performance, but the application and attitudes of his players, not only in the game as well, but in the training sessions leading up to it. So that's certainly a positive for Bristol Rovers in that sense. Now it's very much the case of looking ahead to what's next in terms of their games, and also whether they bring in any further signings as well. Yes, of course, we've had a recent one as mentioned, but there'll probably be more, you'd imagine, in this transfer window. Of course, as a club who've just been relegated, they don't want to spend too many seasons down in League Two. In fact, if anything, they'll want to get out of it straight away. So I think they're trying to not only prepare for life in League Two, but also the potential of returning to League One quickly as well, and bringing in players who not only can fit the mould of their current situation in League Two, but also who can make that step up to League One if and when they get back there. So things looking good for Bristol Rovers. Obviously, the disappointment of last season, it's not quite perhaps gone out of some people's memories, but they're trying as a club to put it behind them. And so far in pre-season, Darrell Clarke, certainly as the head coach, is very happy with the progress that has been made under him.